architectural outcasts.
Dragon Quest XI doesn't ask whether games should be easier or harder. It asks a more revealing question. Do you respect players enough to allow them to decide how they want to engage? That's why Dragon Quest has always been hard for some people to categorize. It doesn't compete the way modern games compete. It's not trying to impress you every 10 seconds. It's not begging you to call it innovative. It's doing something much older and, frankly, rarer. It's built like a town that expects you to live there. There's always been a strange split with Dragon Quest. In Japan, it's a cultural institution, familiar, trusted, part of the furniture. Here in America, it's always been smaller, but the people who love it tend to love it hard. The difference isn't about quality, it's about values. Dragon Quest XI is unapologetically Japanese in its temperament. It assumes you have a life outside of the game. You might put the game down for a week, and then you want to come back and reorient yourself without friction. It's not trying to trap you in a loop, it wants to host you. Right there, that's the first design decision that matters. Every design decision's a conscious choice. It's meant to be that way. That design decision respects the player's attention span, time, and mood. It also respects that you're a human being, not a resource to be mined. That respect isn't accidental. It's designed intentionally and consistently. Dragon Quest XI is a turn-based game, and it's completely comfortable being one. You say, so what? Who cares? Well, think about it. How many modern games treat turn-based systems like a guilty secret? They bury it under spectacle. They over-animate every action. They bolt on hybrids and gimmicks, all in an effort to convince you that you're not playing something old. Dragon Quest XI doesn't do that. It doesn't disguise its systems. It doesn't apologize for tradition. And it doesn't treat clarity like an embarrassment. Roles are legible. Cause and effect stay constant. The interface tells you what matters without shouting. You're not fighting the flippin' game just to understand what it wants. And because of that stability, you're free. You can play casually, or you can go deep and optimize. You can grind, or you can ignore grinding. You can chase every side quest, or stick to the spine of the story. But here's the point. The game doesn't rank those choices. It doesn't shame you for playing lightly, and it doesn't demand mastery to justify your presence. It bends towards the player instead of demanding the player bend towards it. That's respect. Dragon Quest XI opens to a world that is already ordered. Villages exist long before you showed up. Roads lead somewhere. Castles were built for reasons that still matter. People have routines. Institutions predate your involvement. Problems exist that were meaningful long before you picked up a controller. The world doesn't rearrange itself around you. You enter it mid-stride. That's an architectural assumption. The most arrogant building is the one that ignores its surroundings, ignores the street, ignores the fact that life was already going on there. The most humane, the most beautiful building acknowledges context. It takes its place inside of something larger than itself. Dragon Quest XI builds that humanity into its world. And because of that, the stakes feel earned. This isn't a wasteland narrative. It isn't a story about inventing meaning from scratch. Order already exists. Your job isn't to create it, but to understand it. And that one little old assumption is what separates this game from most modern fantasy. Modern fantasy loves the void, the broken world, the scorched moral landscape where nothing is true and everything is manipulation. Dragon Quest XI begins with confidence instead. The world knows what it is, and because it knows what it is, it can afford to be challenged. The fastest way to understand this world isn't through exposition, it's through architecture. A village tells you what home looks like long before anyone says a word. A fortress tells you what authority looks like, and a road tells you if the world is connected or fractured. And when you encounter ruins in Dragon Quest XI, they aren't decorative mood boards, they're consequences. A ruin is never just scenery, they're a receipt. This is architecture doing what architecture does best. It teaches the world's assumptions. Who holds power? How's that power expressed? What's considered a normal life in this world? Where is the safety to be found? Where does danger accumulate? The game isn't trying to create a realistic world, it's emphasizing a legible world. Because you can't have moral tension in a fog, you can't challenge order if you don't perceive it. Modern storytelling often confuses ambiguity with sophistication. Dragon Quest XI understands that clarity is what makes meaningful conflict possible. Then you get the Luminary. And here's the important thing. He isn't rebellion. The Luminary doesn't show up to overthrow the world. He doesn't posture as an outsider who hates everything. He doesn't define himself by rejection. He embodies the stated values of the world. And that's what makes the Luminary dangerous. This is something that modern storytelling misses completely. It's easy to dismiss a rebel. You can frame them as selfish, immature, chaotic. You can convince yourself that the system is just fine, thank you very much. It's the rebel that's the problem. On the other hand, a figure who embodies a system's own stated values exposes that system's contradictions. The Luminary doesn't argue with the world, he reflects it. And when a system is already lying to itself, that reflection becomes accusation. That's why restoration narratives feel so threatening. They imply that something once was good, and it might be good again. That invites comparison, and comparison is one of the things that fragile power can never tolerate. The Luminary is an archetype, the Outlaw Angel. Somebody who's morally aligned, but who has been socially rejected, not because they're corrupt, but because they're correct. Punished not for breaking the rules, but for revealing that the rules have been quietly replaced. He doesn't give speeches. He doesn't plead his case. He simply exists. And like a well-built structure standing amongst all the rot, his mere presence exposes what's already failing. Rebellion can be dismissed. Restoration forces a reckoning. Dragon Quest XI does something else that most modern storytelling tries to avoid. It allows loss, real loss, not temporary inconvenience, not a fake-out tragedy that gets resolved before it has time to matter, not grief as a speed bump on the way back to comfort. Time matters here. Events have weight. The game refuses to rush you past sorrow. Modern storytelling often treats loss like a design flaw, like friction, like an error in the experience. But friction is how meaning is formed. If nothing costs anything, then nothing's worth anything. If you can't lose, then you also can't truly love. Dragon Quest XI assumes the player can endure emotional weight. It assumes that you can live inside something serious for a while without the need to immediately crack a joke to relieve tension. That's respect. Dragon Quest XI has the self-confidence to believe in itself. It doesn't mock its own mythology. It doesn't apologize for hope. It doesn't preemptively distance itself from sincerity, as if earnestness is something to be embarrassed about. It refuses to hide behind irony. The game is deep because it has conviction. It trusts accumulation. It trusts payoff. It trusts that the audience will stick with it. When a story believes in the world that it depicts, it gives the audience permission to believe too. That's trust. There's an irony here worth noting. Dragon Quest XI preserves a Western fairy tale moral architecture that the West itself has been trying to destroy for decades. Heroism, order, restoration, inheritance, duty, moral seriousness. Japanese creators kept these tools sharp, while Western storytellers often treated them like embarrassing relics. Why? Because cultures do strange things. Sometimes a culture only realizes what it had when somebody else keeps it alive. Kurosawa did it with Shakespeare, preserved the structure, stripped away some of the modern sneer, and handed it back stronger. Dragon Quest XI feels like that. It feels like a mirror that's been held up from the outside. Myths survive because they work. They survive because they're functional tools that help people who are trying to orient themselves in the world. Dragon Quest XI treats them like that. At its core, Dragon Quest XI isn't about overthrowing the world. It's about asking a harder question. What is the world meant to be? Reinvention is exciting. Restoration is responsible. One chases novelty, the other accepts inheritance. Modern stories often default to demolition. Burn it down, start over, reinvent everything, treat history as contamination. Dragon Quest XI chooses renovation, repair over replacement, memory over novelty, care over spectacle. That's an architectural mindset. Not everything that's broken needs to be erased. Some things need to be restored because they were good to begin with. People are tired. They're tired of cynicism masquerading as intelligence, tired of grievance masquerading as depth. They're tired of stories refusing to stand for anything and then getting all surprised when people stop believing in anything. Dragon Quest XI offers a real alternative, a world worth saving, and a hero who believes it too. And it does all of this without a lecture, without posturing, without an apology. Stories that don't believe in themselves teach the audience not to believe in them either. Dragon Quest XI still believes in itself. And if there's a reason it hits people now, it's because we live within stories, institutions, and cultural spaces that no longer seem confident in their own foundations. We're living inside structures that no longer know what they're for. Dragon Quest XI still knows what it's for: orientation. Dragon Quest XI understands something fundamental about home, journey, and return. It's memory with responsibility. At any rate, I hope I gave you all something to think about, and until next time, y'all be safe. If y'all are still here, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. While you're at it, why don't you like this video, subscribe to the channel, click that notification bell. You can hear me yammer on about something else next time. And feel free to share this video far and wide.
Please like and subscribe. Please leave a comment.